what I do as a sex coach, what is an intimacy coach, is I help you get clear on you, your relationship with your body, your relationship with your desire, your relationship with your passion and your purpose, your relationship with your yeses, your relationship with your nos, and your relationship with your erotic nervous system. What if the conversations we've been taught to avoid about sex, desire, and our bodies are actually the ones that set us free? Welcome to Sex Ritual Radio. I'm your host, Rose Heartsong. This is the show where sexuality, spirituality, and vital health meet, and where we explore the conversations most people consider oh so taboo. Each week, I sit down with fascinating voices exploring intimacy, relationships, healing, and human potential. Let's dive in. Hello, Laguna Beach, and all of those out into the wide world. This is Rose Heartsong. I am live here in the studio in KXFM, Laguna's Community Radio. It's 104.7, and we are live here every single week at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time with Sex Ritual Radio, and I am your hostess, Rose Heartsong. And we talk a lot about the taboo here. We talk about sexuality, spirituality, vital health, and anything taboo. And there is a question that I get asked absolutely all the time, like almost every single day. And that question is, how did you get into the work of intimacy? How are you an intimacy coach? Or how are you a sex coach? Or how did you get started? Or what does a sex coach actually do? So we're going to answer that. That question is what we're going to be talking about tonight. We'll be here for about an hour, and we're going to dive into that. I am going to get authentic and vulnerable as F with you tonight, because I've been thinking a lot about this question since so many people ask me it so often. And one of the things that I've been learning lately about myself is I am extremely attuned when it comes to my boundaries and consent. And I've been just kind of like sitting with that question of like, how did I get so good at that, right? How did I become so attuned with my body? How do I get so attuned by my no's and my yeses? And how did I get so attuned with my yeses, really, and my no's? I'm very in alignment with it, and I don't do things that I don't want to do in the bedroom and in life, really. I'm a hard no to anything that's not in high vibration. So what does that mean? What does high vibration mean? Okay, so we have this thing called our nervous system, and our nervous system either makes us like nourished, happy, fulfilled, peaceful, or it makes us anxious, overwhelmed, depressed, fearful, scared, and so forth. And so when I say I do things that are in highest vibrational energy, I am constantly thinking about the nervous system and feeding and nourishing my nervous system so that I'm joyful, I'm peaceful, I'm vibrant, I'm happy, I'm alive, I'm turned on. I want to be erotically inspired by every single moment of my life and erotically turned on by the magic of life. And I think one of the reasons that I have that in my cells, like it's a cellular experience that I live in an embodied space all the time, is my last name, right? I am a sovereign creature. I am one of the most sovereign women I know, or humans I know. And sovereign is you own yourself. I'm not owned by my family. I'm not owned by my parents. I'm not owned by a religion. I'm not owned by a man, really, because my last name is not my father's last name. A lot of times, if we look at like patriarchal lineage, there is an ownership factor of biologically, this is my wife, this is my children, they have my last name, and so forth, right? I have my own last name, and I've never been married, and I also have my own made-up last name. My parents made it up. They put it on my birth certificate. It's not anyone else's. It's not my mom's. It's not my dad's. It's mine. And in that, having the name Heartsong, I think, has created this affirmation for my life in which my whole mission and purpose is to follow what lights my heart up. Like, what is the song of my heart? And I've had that since a child. So I'm going to preface that I had the gift of sovereignty from birth. I understand and acknowledge that. And then I also had the gift of freedom through my childhood. I was homeschooled, so I was taught how to learn, not what to learn. In being taught through homeschool of how to learn, not what to learn, I've always dug into study. I am obsessed with learning. I have never stopped studying and learning. I'm always reading like 12 books at the same time. And I'm obsessed with personal growth. I'm obsessed with mindset development. I am obsessed with being the best version of myself possible. And anytime I'm on a lower vibration, depression, anxiety, fear, disconnection, numbness, disassociation, wanting to use substances to numb myself, sadness, lethargy, pain, frustration, irritation, all of those kind of things, I am devoted and committed that no matter what happens, I will work through that. I will find a solution to return back to joy. I will find a solution to turn back into peace. I will find a solution no matter what it takes. I will reinvent myself 1 trillion times. And I believe that I learned that concept from the fact that I was taught how to learn, not what to learn. And so that's a gift. So I do want to acknowledge that my childhood created some really solid foundations for my abilities in that. My mom also taught me consent. If you are a parent and you're listening to this, teach your kids consent. Teach them consent when they are young. Tell them where their body parts are appropriate to be touched by people or not touched by people. Make it clear, because when I was 7, I knew that this man did not touch this girl appropriately when I was 7 years old, and I got him arrested, and I used my voice because my mother told me to use my voice. So if you're a parent, it is your responsibility to teach your children how to use their voices and be clear with their yeses and their nos, clear with their consent, and clear with what their body is, and it's that their body is their sovereign being. That is the core foundation of why I do what I do. When I say to somebody who doesn't know what their purpose is and they don't know what they're here to do in the world, my answer is always find the thing that pisses you off the most, the thing that you're the most enraged about, right? That thing, find it and figure out what it is. Your blood, it makes your blood boil. You want to You're fiercest. It makes this intense, almost like cellular blood boil rage move through you. Find that and then figure out what the solution is. I don't know how, you know what? I invited people to get on the phone and I don't know how to use the phone. I'm going to have to figure that one out. This is a new studio and I have not had phone callers in since. So if you called in, I'm so sorry. I apologize. I really would love to talk to people. I want to start opening this up. Oh, sovereignty, self-sovereignty, ownership of your body, responsibility for your yeses and your nos, understanding and acknowledging that I have this solid foundation. That being said, I also don't have solid foundations in other ways. My mother was extremely bipolar, very emotionally unstable, very physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually abusive. And she died when I was 23 from a very horrific breast cancer. And I had to take care of her from 19 to 23. So my young adult life was ripped out from underneath me. But let's kind of not dive into that yet. Let's kind of put a rain check on that and go backwards. Because the question is, how did I get into this work? And how did I get so good? How did I become a sex coach? And then also, how did I get into the work? And then what does the actual sex coach do? These are the 3 questions I'm going to be answering today. And I'm going to be authentic. I have never shared this on the World Wide Web or the radio before. This is a moment of time of authenticity and vulnerability. So when I was 12 years old, I started to get some weird health issues, and they manifested in my body as back acne on my skin, all over my body and my back, on my thighs, all over my face, like strange acne. And then they also manifested as joint pain, like extreme. And I was 12. This is like right around the time that I hit puberty. Life was confusing at that age regardless, right? It's a really challenging time to be alive as a child going through all those hormonal shifts. And one of the worst aspects of this piece, and this is why it's the sexuality piece, is I started to get these little cuts. They're called fissures. And a fissure is kind of, imagine like a paper cut. Imagine like a paper cut on the inside of your fingers, right? Like that's the worst place, like in the crease in between the fingers, like a tiny little paper cut. And it just hurts, right? It's like, it can bleed a little bit and it's just painful and it's raw. This is the part that I've never shared out into the world. Okay, take a deep breath. When I was 12 years old, I want to say that I never went through any sort of molestation or rape or childhood sexual trauma in any way, shape, or form. So that is not part of my story. And I have deep rage and anger. That is the thing that pisses me off the most. And that is why one of the reasons of why I found the solution, which is embodied sexuality, holistic sexuality, and so forth. And gosh, I'm like really having a hard time sharing this vulnerable piece with you. I started to get the fissures that I was talking about, the really painful ones inside my vulva, or not inside my vulva, on the outside of the vulva. And for those of you who do not know, the vagina is the inside part and the vulva is the outside part of the female genitalia that the vulva is this part, the vagina is the part you don't see that is on the inside. So let's get our anatomy names correctly. We're still calling the outside the vagina, which really frustrates me sometimes. Anyways, so I started getting these little cuts all over my vulva area. And I will tell you that as a 12-year-old, that is horrific. I also had digestive issues, the acne, and joint pain, and it all kind of came in at the same time. And so my mom started taking me to all these doctors. At the time, it was really pediatricians, which is not the vibe, I'll be just honest. And so I started at 12 years old having quite a collection of doctors looking at my genitalia. So though I was not sexually harassed in any way as a young child, molested or raped, I did have a lot of doctors witnessing my private parts as a young age. And I will say that there is a trauma in that. And then I also had this illness or this dis-ease. I like to use the word dis-ease. There's a lack of ease in the body in this area. And although it was and still frustrates me today, I will say that I haven't fully found the cure, unfortunately. I have learned to live with it. I have had chapters in my life where it doesn't impact me. And though it's one of the most challenging things I've ever had to deal with in my life, and I've had to deal with a lot of challenging things, I also has been one of the biggest blessings of my life because it is the part of my life that it's made me have to be fierce with my boundaries and fierce with STI status protection and making sure that I have conversations with partners about the last time they got tested, or it's really created this safety net around my body, being really safe with who I share my body with. And so it's given me the ability to communicate clearly, and it's given me a lot of awareness to my reproductive parts. When I was 19, it was the worst it's ever been. I had incredible gut issues, candida, like crazy candida, incredible pain in the body. I was incredibly sick. So I did a candida diet and I went down this massive rabbit hole of vibrant health and holistic health and healing because I went from doctor to doctor. And I will say the most traumatic thing I think I've ever had to deal with a doctor is they wanted to know if it was something called lichen sclerosis, which is kind of like an eczema. My name's Rose Heartsong. This is KXFM, and this is a sex positive podcast. And I'm talking about why I got into sex coaching and the story of how I got here for the first time ever online. Just so you know, this is intense for me. Anyways, when I was 19, I was incredibly sick. And so I started this is the most traumatic thing that I have. They took a biopsy of my skin in the vulva area. I could not walk for 10 days, y'all. It was the most painful thing I've ever dealt with. And yeah, I still think I have some PTSD from that. But I don't have lichen sclerosis. And what I actually found out, and it's related to my mom. So I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving medical advice. I am just sharing my story on the internet of what I learned about my body. So do not take this as I'm giving you medical advice, but I am going to share what I learned about my body and what I believe personally from my own experience of this deep healing journey that I've been on. Okay, so I do not personally, don't get at me, okay? I do not personally believe that we inherit diseases from our parents. I don't believe because my mom has breast cancer that I'm going to get breast cancer, or that my grandparents had Alzheimer's, so I'm going to have Alzheimer's. I don't believe that. But what I do believe is that we do get passed on certain DNA traits. And one of the things that I learned, this took me my whole life, basically until a couple years ago, and dealing with incredible health issues and challenges. Y'all, I've had some health problems. I have had some problems. I have had a really hard life. And as I said in the beginning of this thing, I am devoted to being happy. I am devoted to joy. I'm devoted to self-nourishment. I am devoted to being the best version I can, no matter what life brings at me. What I found out is all of the weird issues that I had are a B vitamin absorption issue. And with that, I have a methylation issue, which means that I have a hard time detoxing toxins. Symptoms are the acne all over my body, the joint issues, the skin problems, all of that. So I accumulate heavy metals really easily. And I believe that I got this from my mother. And that's why I believe she also had breast cancer, is from heavy metals. And I also believe it's why my grandparents both died from Alzheimer's, because they also probably had that gene, and it makes it hard to methylate, which is releasing the heavy metals from the body. And heavy metals can come. I was a heavy metal detox coach for quite a few years. I've done heavy metal detoxes on myself. Probably need to do another one soon because there's so many of them in our environment. Anyways, so I had all these weird issues with my vulva and vagina. And that is how I got into conscious awareness and communication and consent around my body, because I was already dealing with so many weird health issues. I didn't want to add on an STI onto it, right? And I also that happening at 12 years old made me have acute awareness about who I shared my body with. And so my first sexual experience was actually with my high school sweetheart on prom night when I was 18 years old, and I was madly in love with him. I was on birth control. I was using condoms. I was a very smart and adult teenager, really, in that realm. And it came from this pain and suffering. So then my mom died from breast cancer when I was 23, and I had been going through all these health issues. And when she died, I noticed, this is my truth again, not a doctor, not a specialist. This is my story, prefacing that, just making it clear. One of the things I noticed is, yes, I have the B-methylation issues. Yes, I have challenges getting rid of heavy metals from my body. There are those genetic traits, but I also believe that cancer is 50% emotional and 50% dietary or health. That is my belief. And so I realized that one of the gene aspects is we get our emotional DNA almost like from our lineage, right? From our parents, from our mothers' mothers, from our mothers' 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 mothers. And these concepts and these ways of being and thinking around fear and scarcity and anxiety and stress and guilt get passed down from generation. And I was like, I am not doing this. This ends with me. And so in that, after my mom passed away, I was going through some deep and pretty powerful grief. And so I decided to go on a one-way ticket to Thailand and devote to healing. So I did multiple 10-day silent meditation retreats. I did multiple 30-day immersive yoga teacher trainings. I did them in Thailand and India, the birthplace of yoga. I was doing acupuncture. I was getting body work. I was doing breath work. I was doing mushrooms, doing mushroom therapy on myself, taking different psychedelics. I was doing peyote ceremonies and ayahuasca. And I was diving deep, deep into this realm of spiritual development. And that is when I stumbled upon Agama Yoga, which is Agama Yoga is a university of yoga and tantra in Thailand. It's in this little town called Koh Phangan. And I found out such thing. I've talked about it on the show before. I was going through a detox. I had this trauma stored in my body. It was like in my sternum, right underneath, like where the ribs come together. And I had all this grief and this pain and this anger towards my mother, and it wouldn't come out. Nothing I was doing was working. I was trying everything, right? Everything. And so I ended up doing a yoni massage. And a yoni massage, the yoni is Sanskrit for vagina. And so I had a vagina massage or a yoni massage where a lot of times when there's an interaction with sexuality involving the fingers inside of the vagina, it usually is like, boom, like really intense, right? But a massage is where like the massage, like it's actually like body work inside the muscles in the vaginal wall, which is so healing and so important, so necessary. And if anyone has numbness, pain, disassociation down there inside the vagina, you definitely need to get a yoni massage because it is completely life-changing. And this helped my grief come out. I helped my pain and it helped my grief and it set me free. And like I had a cervical orgasm and I didn't know that you could have a cervical orgasm. A lot of women don't know that they can have cervical orgasms. And what is the cervix, you ask, right? If you don't know what a cervical orgasm is or you haven't heard of one, there's a place where the uterus, right, which is where the babies are made, the uterus drops down into the vagina, and there's a little part of the uterus that like pops down into the vagina, and it looks kind of like a little donut, and it's where they connect, and it's very tender. And so most women, if they have it anywhere near penetrated, it causes a lot of pain. The first time that I had it penetrated, I went to the ER, and I will tell you, I was young. I was 22. I would tell you, this is before I had my yoni massage. I will tell you that it was the most embarrassing thing ever because, of course, the doctor was like this super young, very attractive man. And I'm like, I'm here because my cervix hurts because I had too crazy of a sexual experience with my boyfriend. That was really awkward for me. Anywho, the cervix can have these profound experience. It is the most incredible experience I've ever experienced in my body. The most magical, literally energy like shoots up the whole body, goes out the top of the head, like explodes up the top of the head, shoots down through my hands. I felt like if I could put my hands on anyone or anything, I could heal them instantly, just like Jesus Christ did. I have a feeling that he was practicing sex magic rituals. You can hate me all you want for that, but I have a very strong feeling he was. It doesn't say anywhere in the Bible that he didn't have sex, by the way. There is no passage saying it. Anywho, so I had the cervical orgasm, and that just blasted me open to what is this tantra thing? What is sacred sexuality? What is going on? How do I do this? This is the most healing thing I've ever done. And it feels good. I can heal and feel amazing at the same time. That just kind of opened up all these doors to reading books and trying new things and I've always because the first interaction I've ever had with sex was with my high school sweetheart, we were madly in love. It was prom night. It was planned. Everything, my body and my heart and my soul and my somatic experience and my protection was safe. And because of that, although I do have the trauma of dealing with these vulva issue from 12 years old on, it created a safety net for me of responsibility for my own body. Anyway, so after this thing happened in Thailand with the yoni massage, I couldn't stop talking about it. And then the next year, it's 2013, I think it's all the same year, I go to Burning Man. And Burning Man's right around the corner, by the way. I think it's next weekend or the weekend after that. It's coming up soon. Anyways, I was talking to my girlfriends, and one of them said that this is my first experience playing with others in some context. She told me she had never self-pleasured before. And so I was like, girl, I'm going to teach you, and I'm at Burning Man, so it feels really right now. And I just took off my pants. I was like, get over here. I'm going to show you how to do it. And I learned how to do it by watching PORN on the internet. And that was my education tool of teaching myself how to do it. And so I kind of had that puddle of pleasuring we pleasured ourselves together in the same area. And that was like my first group experience. So that was in 2013. So it's just kind of evolved, right? As I was exploring and as I was trying. And then in 2015, I went back to Burning Man and I went to the Orgy Dome. That was my first group experience. But I just was like, I was obsessed, because I've always been obsessed with studying and learning and growing and finding peace and joy and fulfillment and nourishment and safety and using my voice and saying no because of all these weird health issues that I had. I just became obsessed with studying sexuality. And I found it so fascinating because, you guys, we need to eat water. We need to eat. We need to sleep. And we need to have sex. That is part of human beings. And yet we don't shame. Well, I guess we do. There's certain levels. We do kind of shame sleeping sometimes. And we do kind of there's elements of bulimia and anorexia and stuff that create shame around food or obesity, right? So there is elements of the basic human things. And then some people don't drink enough water, which water is drinking water. By the way, if you're listening right now, you should drink some water. Just a reminder. Anywho, I just drank some water. It was really good. Just so you know. Sex is the most shamed. Let's just be real. Sex is the most shamed element of the basic human needs. And it's kind of taken away as a basic human need, except for we need to do it to reproduce, to create more people to live. It's important. Anywho, I just started getting obsessed with learning about it and talking about it and going to workshops and retreats and learning here and talking to my boyfriends about it and getting curious about, hey, there's this Tantra thing. We should try it. And then I got in a really toxic relationship when I want to say I was 26. I got in a really abusive relationship with a man who was a jiu-jitsu star, and he wanted to win me. He was committed to winning everything. He just wanted to win. And believe me, I had done all this personal development, all this training, all of this information. I knew so much about myself and the world, and I had done tons of Tony Robbins, by the way. I was just obsessed with growth, and I met him at a personal development workshop. He charmed the pants off of me. This guy drove 2 hours to where I was staying and dropped off roses, coconut water, and blueberries to win me over, and then left and drove 2 hours back. He was courting me, and he was working so hard for me, and he just wanted me. And so I decided to move in with him, and I lost all of my sovereignty. I lost all of my power completely. And I got in an abusive relationship, and I was broke. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a job. I was relying on him completely. I was living in this gorgeous house in Berkeley overlooking the whole bay. And from the outside on social media, I looked like I was like thriving, but I was in this really sexually toxic relationship where his energy was extremely extractive, right? He was taking from me and extracting from me, and he was needing, it was like this tatchy sexual energy that just did not nourish me. And I got smaller and I lost myself and I lost my power. And unfortunately, that relationship ended with me having a bruised face, and I got out. I had to get out, and it was incredibly challenging. And in that, I wanted to explore because he slut shamed me. The fight that involved me ending with a bruised face ended with him because he was slut shaming me, and he was trying to control who I talked to and what I did. And he had cheated on his ex-fiance, by the way. I've never cheated, ever, never will. I'm very sovereign in that. But he was always making up the story that I was cheating. He had an issue with my body count. He was trying to control me all the time, manipulate me, and so forth. And it was incredibly scary and very toxic. Also, he was a jiu-jitsu star. He could, like, if he wanted to, he could do bad things quickly. And so I'm so grateful and so blessed. I had his mom and his grandmother actually help me get out because they saw what was going on. Later on, I found out that I think he was getting brain damage from all of his fights. It's an issue with football coaches as well. So I got out of that relationship, and then I started dating this bad boy in LA. I've actually had him on the show, and he really he saw the freely expressed side of me that had been caged for a long time and was called bad names. And so he wanted to let that version of me free. And so he brought me into sex party world and playing with other world and open parties experiences. And I went from zero, because I was like in this cage of toxic abuse and slut shaming, to this free, expansive, oh my goodness, I want to try this and I want to do that and I want to do it all, from 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. I do not recommend that. This is why I became a sex coach. This is the why, because my nervous system was fried. It was freaking out completely. And I was like, I want to become the person that needs to hold that version of me, because I wanted to be freely expressed. I've always been curious about being freely expressed, and I went way too fast, way too quick. And so I went celibate after that. I went crazy for a summer, like 5 months, had all this fun, did all this stuff, and then went celibate, and really reflected on my energy with my own sexuality and how, as a woman, I can use my sexuality to manipulate or control men, or how I can pull in energy that I don't want to pull in. And so I really kind of took a step back and started to deeply study. And in the deep study, I started to talk about it more and share what I was studying. And so all these people started calling me and asking questions. And I was a health coach before. I helped people with health and wellness and vitality and energy. I started studying. I started learning. I started taking trainings, Tantra trainings and dominatrix trainings and sex coach trainings. And I started to dive into this realm of deeper intimacy, right? Deeper consent, deeper expression, deeper awareness. And then I got in another abusive relationship. And I think part of, like, my parents, one of the things I realized is, like, my parents' example of love was friction, was fighting, was anger and frustration. And so growing up, although I grew up in like a sovereign way and a very open-minded way, I also grew up with a lot of chaos equaling love, and a lot of manipulation equaling love, and a lot of friction equaling love, and a lot of my dad not being there and desiring him to want me. And so in this now moment, I'm working with my therapist and my coach on the concept that I am very much attracted to men who are unavailable. And the embodied experience of that unavailability is my dad was never unavailable, right? And I always wanted his love. And so I am healing my relationship with my father. creating healthy boundaries with him, but also having really nourishing conversations with him. And also on the path of healing my relationship with the masculine. I've noticed lately that I am completely surrounded by magical, magnetic, brilliant, healthy, self-aware, conscious, awakened men who will want to support me and help me and nourish me. And they're not just trying to get out of my pants. They're actually my friends, and they're being kind. I've actually gotten friend zoned quite a bit lately, which is kind of not the vibe, I'm not gonna lie. Anyways, but that's the unavailability aspect. In 2021, I was going through a really intense health crisis, and I got in another unhealthy relationship. This one I feel like was very karmic. He is from Egypt and I am Jewish, and there was kind of like the Muslim Jewish energetic thing. I lived in Israel when I was 18. And so we kind of were going through the Abrahamic religion dissolving dance, and in that created a lot of chaos. And I will have to say, I want to take full responsibility. I am a woman that's taking full responsibility, and I'm going to be an example as a woman taking responsibility. I chose to be in a relationship that wasn't healthy. I knew there was red flags and I ignored them. I stayed, and when he was angry and enraged, I poked the bear. That being said, his mental health is not solid. I should have not entered into this relationship. I should have gotten out of the relationship. And I had some beautiful lessons learned in that dynamic. During the relationship with him, I did go through my sex coach training certification. And right when we ended is actually when I started becoming a sex coach. I've been a sex coach for almost 4 years, I believe now. And that is it's almost like this deep level of pain and suffering and not being met by the masculine, feeling afraid of the masculine, feeling afraid of my body, feeling scared of my body. All of that has created the ability to communicate my boundaries and my desires and my wants and my yeses and my nos. And all those things has made me be the powerful, authentic, open, vulnerable version of myself that I was talking about these things on the World Wide Web and sharing all of this vulnerably. And so why did I become a sex coach? I'll say one of the reasons I became a sex coach is because I realized how much of the world is not conscious sexually. There is such a deep level of, I'm going to say it, and you might get mad at me. And if you get mad at me, there's probably some truth to it. There is a deep level of stupidity, like absolute disgusting stupidity in the realms of sexuality. And there is such a small amount of people willing to be educated in the realms of sexuality. And there are so many people that are slaves to their sexuality, that are slaves to their desire, that are slaves to, and it completely takes over their body and completely controls them, and their brains turn off and they get into this primal energy that is toxic and unhealthy. And going back to the thing that pisses me off the most is molestation and inappropriate touch to children. That is the most disgusting thing that a human being can do, in my opinion. And so with that, what I am here to stand for integrity. I am here to stand for devotion. I am here to stand for magic and beauty and ecstatic bliss when it comes to erotic pleasure. And I know it's possible because I've been able to say yes with my own body. I've been able to tap into areas and aspects of it, express it through my body. But ladies and gentlemen, it takes work. It takes deep, brave, profound, sovereign, creative, expansive work. Anyone who is willing to work with me is one of the bravest humans I know. Because when I work with a client, I'm not watching my clients do it and giving them guidance. That is not what I do at all. I am not. Sometimes I give positions. I don't do anything with my clients. I don't touch them. I am not erotically intimate with my clients in any way, shape, or form. What I do as a sex coach, what is an intimacy coach, is I help you get clear on you, your relationship with your body, your relationship with your desire, your relationship with your passion and your purpose, your relationship with your yeses, your relationship with your nos, and your relationship with your erotic nervous system. And so many of us, as I said, are slaves to our erotic energy. And I teach you to become owners of it. I teach you how, and as you become an owner of your erotic energy, everything in your life opens. Everything. People get, a lot of the clients I work with, they get raises, they get so much magic gets opened up, right? They get free to express themselves. They create magical albums or creative releases, or so much, or become the person that they're meant to be. They leave their 9-to-5 job that makes them miserable and hate themselves and go and become the most magnetic, incredible, soul-driven version of themselves, right? I stand to let people be on fire for their lives, to follow their heart song and to do what is true for them. And so a couple of my clients, right, I work with the core wound of what's holding you back in your sexuality and your intimacy. Why you're blocking your heart? Why are you blocking your soul? Why aren't you able to go into that powerful erotic devotion of magnetic bliss? What is holding you back? What is numbing you? What is disassociating for your body? What is making you shut down your voice and not speak your truth into the world and your pleasure and your desires? What is making you small? What is making you fearful? What is making you feel shame? What is making you feel insecurity and scarcity and lack and fear? When I work with you, we work at the core, and sexual development is the last thing. It's put on the back burner. It is the last thing that we work on. We work on all different realms of personal development, right? And sexual development's the last one that people do. I love that. I love that as a coach, because most of the people that I work with are super, super incredibly well educated. And I love that so much. And they're devoted to being the best versions of themselves. And sexual development's the last thing that we do. It's the core thing that sets you free. So what a lot of clients come to me for is marriages that they're having, couples that are having sex once a month or haven't had sex in years, or they're having ED issues, which is erectile dysfunction issues. They just went through a divorce and they don't know how to date. They don't know what they want. There's a resentment on one couple. In a couple, the one person wants it more often, the other person shut down. There's usually some sort of deep wound, like infidelity or some sort of emotional trauma that was really big that they haven't gotten through. So I kind of get them down to the core. And what we do is we figure out what the patterns are that are not working in their intimacy. What is the pattern that isn't working? What is that consistent pattern? And then we pull it apart and we look at it. And this can involve having conversations at the dinner table. How do they talk to each other? What is the tone of their voice? What is the meaning? How are they communicating boundaries? Do they have a boundary? What is a boundary? How do they navigate intimacy or sex? Do you know your sexual languages? Do you know your love languages? Do you have clear, direct conversation with your partner about what it is that you deeply yearn and crave for and desire? When was the last time you spent 5 minutes looking at your partner in the eyes and softening your body, softening your jaw, breathing, connecting with them, being intimate with them, being an erotic expression with your partner? An erotic expression does not mean a P and a V experience, y'all. It means that erotic aliveness that's possible in your body, right? Whether you are in a 30-year-long marriage and you haven't had sex in a couple of years and you are feeling frustrated and sad and shut down and you feel like that part of your life is gone, right? We get to the core of it. We talk about it and we re-spark that energy. Whether you're in a relationship for 10 years and you're having some sort of ED issue potentially, and or insecurity or stress, is just life is stressful and work is hard and you feel numb. Or if you're a woman, if you never had an internal O and you don't know how to move erotic energy through your whole body, or you don't know how to say no in your voice, and you shut down and you freeze and you collapse. These are a lot of the people that I work with. And what happens is this incredible, amazing, clear, direct communication, embodied erotic expression in their body, this sense of ownership of self, right? And sexual energy becomes a fuel for creation of life. It's not just this slave, this energetic thing that we're a slave to and that we do toxic things with, right? We use it to manipulate or to push ourselves or extract from or take or get validation. Right? It's this form of devotional energy. It's this form of nourishment and pleasure and play. And the best way, and when I work with clients, the way that I work with them is we start with you. Whether or not you're in marriage or not, we start with you. What do you want? What do you desire? What turns you on? What makes you feel alive? What do you crave? What have you never said out loud before? What do you want erotically that you've never admitted to yourself? What if you don't know what you want, right? What if you never explored that? And that part of you that's shut down, that part of you that's disassociated and disconnected, that part, when it's freed up, so much more in your life is freed up. So much more magic is created. So much more beauty and bliss and freedom and expression and love and creativity and aliveness and joy. And so I stand that you, my friend, get to live that way. And so I would love to work with you. I have availability right now. It's going to be the fall time where I start internally hibernating, going internal. And it's a really beautiful time. I want to help you go into this fall season at the end of your year really nourished and really soul fulfilled. And so you can go to roseheartsong.com and you can say the button that says let's talk, and we can get on a 30-minute call. And during that 30-minute call, I can ask you and see what's going on for you. And I can be in devotion and service for you. And whatever you want, right? What do you do with your clients? I do what my clients want with my own boundaries. No touching of my physical body. No erotic expression between the two of us. It looks like we're eye gazing or breathing or talking, or if you're in Southern California and you want to work with me in my studio, I have my cauldron there and we sit and we drink tea that turns us on, not erotically or not sexually, but erotically. So creative energy can flow, relaxation in the body can be there. And if we do it on Zoom, we work on all different areas of your life. It's basically like I'm like a kinky therapist life coach that talks specifically about your sex life, right? And so the difference between a therapist and a coach is therapists really spend a lot of time on the trauma in the past. My job is to help you get clear on what patterns are working or not working in your life, and then take the patterns that aren't working and replace them with new patterns to get clear and directly in alignment with what you say you desire. And I help you get clear what you desire, because most people say, I don't know what I want. I know what I don't like, but I don't know what I want. So we get clear on what you desire, and then we create a roadmap to make that desire a reality. You can go over to roseheartsong.com. Click that little button that says let's talk. We'll chat on a Zoom call for 30 minutes and we can have a conversation. And I have space right now and it'd be such an honor to serve you. And this is Rose Heartsong, and I'm here every single Sunday at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Sex Ritual Radio with KXFM, Laguna's community radio. And I appreciate you. It is so brave of you just to be here on this show, just to listen to my wild, taboo, out-of-the-box concepts, right? This new relationship with your intimacy, this new relationship with your erotic flow, this new relationship with your body and your desire and your pleasure and your play and all the things that are potentially possible for you inside of your heart. And so it's been a joy. I'm super grateful to have you here. And I will see you next week on KXFM, Laguna's Community Radio, with Sex Rich Radio and Rose Heartsong. Have a beautiful night. I'm going to be real with you. I am so over sex being a taboo topic that we talk about. I am ready for conscious sexuality, spiritual sexuality to be a conversation in the room. I have been in so many rooms full of people. I share that I'm a sex coach and people get awkward and shrink and get small around me. And I am so ready for that to be done. And it starts with you. In order to make this conversation bigger, this podcast gets to grow. In 2026, I am committed to impacting 100,000 people's lives with this, and I need your help. So would you please subscribe, leave a comment, share it on your Instagram story, or text it to a friend. It would mean the world to me, and I will see you next week.